Children of Standard 5, we have been discussing safety and first aid. We discussed about we should not be careless to avoid accidents. We discussed about the first aid. What is first aid? That is immediate help given to an injured person before the doctor arrives. And we discussed about what should be the first aid for burns, what should be the first aid for scratches and cuts. Today we are going to discuss about first aid for nosebleed. Children, we always witness nose bleeding in school, in our classroom. When during the summer, nose bleeding is very common during the summer season. It happens when small capillaries of the nose burst. So children, all of us know that our nasal cavity is having small capillaries filled with blood. And when these capillaries burst, then nose bleed. And what should we do in that case? First, we should make the person lie flat on his back, and we should pinch the tip of the nose. And we always know that putting an ice always stops bleeding and it relieves us from pain. So we should pour cold water on the head, and by that way we can save the person from nose bleeding. We can stop that nose bleeding. And the second condition is condition of fracture. So what is fracture, children? Any kind of crack in the bone is called fracture. We discussed earlier that in our skeleton and muscular system chapter that what is tendon and ligament, and all of us know that in case of fracture, what should we do? The first thing, that is the most required thing, is to keep calm and composed condition. And fracture is caused when there is a crack or break in the bone of our body. When a person falls down and if there is a fracture, usually the limb gets swollen and there is a lot of pain. Then we normally come to know that there is a fracture. So we should not panic, and in case of a fracture, we should provide a sling and take the patient to an orthopedist, a doctor of bones and muscles. So children, we should always put a flat object like a cardboard or a notebook under the fractured part and give support by tying a piece of cloth around it. So the support is known as a splint. So here the splint is necessary and the cloth tied around is called sling. So you can see in this picture that there is a sling and splint is also you can see. So what is a splint? The support is known as a splint and the cloth that is tied is called sling. So, and we should always, in case of fracture, we should always take the person to the doctor immediately. So children, the case of fractures always happen around us when we play in the playground, and when we jump on the desk, and any kind of when we fall from the staircase and in the playground. And the case of nose bleeding in children always happen during the summer season. So we should always take care of these conditions, take care of the patient, and we should be ready with the first aid kit to help an injured person and the person who is a victim of nose bleeding. So these are the first aid. What should we do as first aid in case of nose bleeding and in case of fracture? So this is all about of the first aid for nose bleeding and first aid for fractures.